It was a sunny Saturday morning at the Pig family's house. Sun rays streamed through Peppa's bedroom window, and she was more excited than ever since she and Mummy Pig had planned to meet Mummy Sheep and Suzy to visit some stores. Peppa and Suzy love to hang out together, just like Mummy Pig and Mummy Sheep, who have been best friends since they were the same age as their daughters. After they met, the friends began to visit several stores and bought a few things. The trip. After that, everyone returned to Peppa's house to drop off the little pig and her mom. However, just when they were about to leave, Mummy Sheep received a very important phone call. After hanging up the phone, Mummy Sheep said,
"Do you remember, Mummy Pig, that a while back I received a job offer and Suzy and I were going to move to another country? But at the last minute, the company backed out of hiring me? Well, it seems they changed their minds and want to do a trial with me. But I will need to travel far away and be gone for a week. I can't do this. Suzy can't be alone for that long."
After thinking for a bit, Mummy Pig said,
"Don't worry about that, Mummy Sheep. Suzy can stay at our house while you travel. We've been friends for so long, and our daughters have too. Actually, this will be a lot of fun, right, Peppa?"
Yes, it will be, Mummy. Having Suzy stay at my house will be so cool.
Peppa said, very happy and smiling. Then Mummy Sheep said,
"Thank you so much, Mummy Pig. The trial starts in 2 days, so I need to travel tomorrow. I'll go home with Suzy to pack our bags, mine for the work trip, and hers to stay with you for the next few days. You're a great friend."
Suzy and Peppa then hugged each other, filled with joy at the thought of living together for an entire week. It was sure to be a very fun week. After Mummy Sheep and Suzy left, Peppa couldn't stop thinking about how her best friend, Suzy Sheep, was going to spend a week with her, which promised to be an epic event. This made Peppa beam with happiness. It had been a long time since they spent so much time together. The games, the laughter, and even bedtime would be full of fun. Soon the doorbell rang, and the little pig rushed to the door, almost tripping in her excitement. There were Suzy and Mummy Sheep, with Suzy holding a small suitcase and, of course, her favorite toy, the penguin. The penguin was Suzy's most treasured possession. Made of fabric and stuffed with cotton, the toy had come apart a few times and Mummy Sheep had fixed it since Suzy didn't want a new toy. The penguin accompanied Suzy on all her adventures, and during the week she would stay at the pig family's house. It wouldn't be any different.
Suzy, you're here. We're going to play all day. I can't wait.
Peppa shouted, hugging her friend tightly. Mummy Sheep smiled and bent down to give Suzy a goodbye kiss.
"Thank you for taking care of Suzy, Mummy Pig. This work trip is very important, but I'll miss her a lot."
Mummy Pig, always helpful and calm, replied,
"Don't worry. Suzy will have a great time here with Peppa. The girls are going to have an awesome weekend together. You'll see."
Mummy Sheep gave Suzy one last tight hug and said,
"Be a good girl, dear. And if you need me, just call. I'll be back in a few days, okay?"
Suzy nodded with a shy smile, but her eyes were filled with anticipation for the fun ahead. After Mummy Sheep left, Peppa grabbed Suzy's hand, and the two ran to Peppa's room, barely able to contain their excitement, playtime, and problems. Peppa's room quickly transformed into a real playground. The girls played make-believe with stuffed animals, built stories with castles and dragons, and created little adventures for their dolls. Their laughter filled the house with joy. Mummy Pig, hearing the giggles from upstairs, couldn't help but smile while preparing a snack for the two. Soon, the two came down the stairs, deciding it was time to play in the pig family's garden. George joined them outside as well.
"Penguin is ready for his castle party,"
Suzy said, holding her penguin on a pillow they imagined to be the throne.
Yes, and now we're going to set up the big competition. We can make an obstacle course in the garden.
Peppa said, always creative, also holding her favorite toy, Teddy the bear. Even George was holding his favorite toy, which we all know is the dinosaur. The idea of the obstacle course excited Suzy.
"This is going to be amazing. We can run around the garden and imagine Hope's buckets that would be holes to jump over, pillow mountains to climb, and trees to run around. Penguin can watch from atop a chair. He will be the king who decides who wins the obstacle race."
And so everyone ran out of the house. Peppa and Suzy set everything up. They grabbed ropes, laid pillows on the ground, brought buckets, and finally Suzy carefully placed Penguin, sitting on a chair in the garden, in a watching king position, ready to see the competition. The accident. The competition was in full swing. Peppa and Suzy jumped rope, ran around the buckets, climbed pillows, and were having so much fun they didn't even notice the time passing. But in a moment of excitement, Peppa, while running to pass through one of the obstacles, didn't see the chair where Penguin was sitting. With a bump, the chair tipped over, and Suzy's favorite toy fell straight to the ground, with the chair landing on top of it. When that happened, the weight of the chair caused Penguin to come apart, and some of its stuffing spilled out. There was a moment of silence, and Peppa and Suzy looked at each other. It was as if a strange barrier had formed between the two friends in that moment. Suzy's eyes filled with tears as she realized what had happened. She ran to her toy and shouted,
Penguin!
Peppa stopped immediately. She looked at Suzy, then at Pinguim on the ground, and felt a knot in her stomach. The little pig then said,
I didn't mean to, Suzy. It wasn't my fault, so I don't have to apologize.
Peppa said this and immediately crossed her arms, making an angry face. Suzy began to cry.
But you broke it. Penguin was my favorite toy and now he's dead.
Mummy Pig, who was inside the house, heard the screams coming from outside. The lesson. Worried, Mummy Pig immediately went to the garden and saw Suzy's tears. The little sheep was holding her broken Pinguim, while Peppa stood with her arms crossed, clearly upset but refusing to apologize.
What's happening here? Peppa, can you tell me what happened?
Mummy Pig asked in a calm but serious voice. She knelt down to be at eye level with the girls and assessed the situation. Peppa looked down at the ground and murmured,
I was running and accidentally bumped into the chair. Penguin, who was watching our obstacle race, fell, and the chair landed on him, and he ripped, but I didn't do it on purpose.
Mummy Pig looked kindly at Peppa.
I understand it was an accident, Peppa, but I think Suzy is very sad because her Pinguim is broken, don't you think, dear?
Peppa, still with her arms crossed, felt a mix of emotions. She knew Suzy was sad, but she was still angry, feeling it wasn't truly her fault. She said, almost defiantly,
I don't need to apologize if I didn't do it on purpose.
Suzy was quietly crying, hugging her toy, and then whispered,
I just wanted you to say sorry, Peppa.
Mummy Pig took a deep breath and sat down next to the girls on the grass.
You know, girls, when I was little, Mummy Sheep and I were very close friends, and just like you, we always played together, but we also fought sometimes.
Suzy, still sniffling, looked at Mummy Pig with curiosity.
You fought, really?
Mummy Pig smiled and then replied,
Yes, a few times we disagreed, but we always made up. Did you know we also lived together for a few days, just like you two when you were the same age? This time, it was my parents, Grandpa and Grandma Pig, who needed to travel, and I stayed at the sheep family's house for a week, just like Suzy will stay with us, Peppa.
But did you break Mummy Sheep's toy by accident when you lived in the same house?
Peppa asked, a bit embarrassed.
Yes, dear, that happened to us too, but it wasn't me who broke the toy. It was Mummy Sheep who broke my favorite toy by accident,
Replied Mummy Pig, smiling gently.
One day, when we were playing a game called Who Jumps Higher, we even placed our two favorite toys as spectators and judges. I jumped first, and I think I made a great jump, to be honest. Then it was Mummy Sheep's turn to jump, and of course she jumped higher than me since sheep jump higher than pigs. But when she landed on the ground, she lost her balance a bit and took a few steps to the side and ended up stepping on Mr. Oink. He was a pull-string doll that I loved, which my dad had made for me since back then there weren't as many toy stores as there are today. Just like Suzy, when I saw that, I was very sad and started to cry. The funny thing is that Mummy Sheep did the same thing you did, Peppa, and refused to apologise, thinking that because it was an accident, she didn't need to do that.
Really, Mummy? Did she make you cry?
Asked Peppa.
Of course it was an accident, but yes, she made me cry just like you made Suzy cry, Peppa, and that wasn't nice at all.
At that moment, Peppa and Suzy looked at each other, and Peppa felt guilty for what she had done. Peppa and Suzy were focused on the story. Suzy, with wide eyes, then asked Mummy Pig,
Did you make up? What happened next?
That's the coolest part of the story, Suzy. Soon after crossing her arms and saying she wouldn't apologise, Mummy Sheep felt sad because I was sad. So she looked at me and apologised. She even tried to fix my toy but ended up breaking it even more. And even knowing that she broke Mr. Oink by accident, it felt really good to hear her say sorry. In fact, it was good for both Mummy Sheep and me. And when Grandpa Pig returned from his trip with Grandma Pig, he fixed Mr. Oink, making him as good as new.
You forgave her, Mummy Pig. How nice.
said Suzy, drying her eyes with her hands.
Yes, I forgave her, and soon we were playing together again. That day, we learned that sometimes a simple word like sorry can fix more than a broken toy. It can mend what we feel here in our hearts,
Said Mummy Pig, pointing to Peppa's and Suzy's chests. Peppa looked at the ground, reflecting on what her mother had said. She knew she had hurt Suzy and that even though it wasn't on purpose, she should apologize. Finally, she looked at Suzy and said in a softer tone,
I'm sorry, Suzy. I didn't mean to break your penguin.
Suzy smiled and replied.
It's okay, Peppa. I forgive you.
Mummy Pig, relieved, smiled, seeing the two friends hugging.
See, apologizing can be difficult sometimes, but it makes us feel so much better.
The two friends embraced and went back to playing, much more carefully than before. Later that day, Mummy Pig helped put the stuffing back into Penguin and stitched up all the places where it had come apart, making the toy good as new, much to Suzy's relief. Mummy Sheep returns. Days passed and Peppa and Suzy went to school together every day. They shared meals and played as much as they could with their toys, including Suzy's Penguin. They even slept in the same bed in the guest room of the pig family. A few days later, when Mummy Sheep returned from her trip, Suzy ran to her and hugged her tightly, excitedly sharing everything.
Mummy, Peppa, and I learned something very important during the days you were away. It was so much fun, but I missed you.
Really? What did you learn?
Asked Mummy Sheep, smiling.
We learned that sometimes, even when we don't do something on purpose, apologizing is important. In fact, our friendship is what truly matters.
Mummy Sheep looked proudly at Mummy Pig, who returned the smile. The two mothers knew their daughters had learned a valuable lesson that would stay with them for the rest of their lives, just as it had for them many years before. And so the weekend ended with laughter, hugs, and lots of fun. Peppa and Suzy were closer than ever, now understanding that a simple word like sorry could fix much more than a toy. It could strengthen friendships forever. It was so much fun and great to learn a new lesson with Peppa. If you want to see more videos of the pink little pig, we're leaving 2 more awesome videos on your screen for you to choose from. Thanks, and see you in the next video.